Hi, I'm Emma Carter, and this is the story of how I poured everything, my time, my energy, my life, into a company I didn't even name, only to be told I'd never be good enough to lead it. It's the story of how I walked away with nothing and came back holding everything. But let's start at the beginning, when none of us had anything but a dusty little warehouse and a dream. Our family business, Carter and Sons Logistics, was born from my grandfather's post-war hustle and my father's relentless work ethic. It started as a local courier service, 2 trucks and a phone line that rang maybe twice a day. By the time I was in high school, it had grown into a small but steady logistics company serving regional clients, mostly warehouses and small retailers. From the outside, it looked like a classic family success story. But on the inside, it was always a kingdom built for my brother Noah. Noah, the eldest, the golden boy. Dad used to say he had business in his blood, just like his father. He was charismatic, outgoing, always knew what to say in a room full of important men. I was the planner, the one who stayed up late buried in spreadsheets and route optimization, models, while Noah played golf with potential partners. When I graduated with a dual degree in supply chain management and information systems, I had big dreams for the company. I didn't want to take it over. I wanted to transform it, make it smarter, faster, leaner. Dad didn't understand most of what I proposed in those early days. Why fix something that isn't broken? He'd grumble. But he let me experiment, mostly because I didn't ask for much. Just a quiet desk in the back corner and permission to test a few ideas. And those ideas worked. Year 1, I cut costs by 18% by reworking our routing systems. Year 2, I led a full digital transformation, swapping paper logs and whiteboards for cloud-based fleet tracking. By year 4, we had contracts with 2 national retailers. By year 10, we were a $60 million logistics powerhouse. But no matter how much we grew or how many problems I solved, I never stopped being the helper, the girl behind the curtain, the one who made things work, but never stood on stage. Noah had left for a few years, tried and failed to launch a startup, but came back the moment the company was too big to ignore. I still remember the day he walked into the office like he'd never left. Everyone welcomed him with open arms. Dad hugged him like he was returning from war. Just like that, he had an office. And a title, Vice President of Business Development. I bit my tongue. Maybe he'd changed. He hadn't. He took credit for deals I closed, talked over me in meetings, made subtle jabs. Great with numbers, but not much of a leader. I figured the work would speak for itself. I was wrong. The real blow came on a quiet Saturday evening. Dad's 60th birthday. Family dinner at our old spot. Red leather booths, same waiter from when I was a kid. Just family and a few close business associates. I had a feeling something was coming. Dad had hinted at a big announcement. When dessert was served, he stood up and tapped his glass. He talked about legacy, about storms we'd weathered, about how Carter and Sons had become a true success. I smiled. Maybe I'd finally get a seat at the table. Then he said it. It's time to pass the torch to the next generation. And there's no one better suited to lead us into the future than Noah. I blinked. The words didn't register at first. From this day forward, he continued, Noah will be stepping in as CEO. I'll remain chairman. But the future belongs to my son. There was no mention of me, not a word. I sat there in silence, fork resting on my untouched slice of cake. Noah looked smug. My aunt nodded proudly. Mom, tight-lipped as always. Then Dad turned to me. Emma, he said, you'll still have your role in operations, but leadership, it's not really your strength. You're a workhorse, reliable, but not a visionary. And then the line that burned into me. You'll never be good enough to run this company. Silence. I stood up slowly, tucked my napkin on the table, gave a soft nod. Thanks for the clarity, I said, and I walked out. No yelling, no tears, no drama, just quiet dignity and 1,000 thoughts racing through my head. That night, I packed up my office. I didn't tell anyone. I just left. But I didn't disappear. I went to build something of my own. And 5 years later, I'd return in a way none of them saw coming. Because sometimes the people you underestimate the most are the ones who come back holding the keys to everything you thought was yours. The night I walked out, the air felt colder than usual, not because of the weather, but because something inside me had frozen. That moment at the table wasn't just betrayal. It was clarity, a breaking point. I had spent my whole life trying to prove myself, but they never really saw me. Noah didn't have to earn his crown. He was born with it. I could have tripled the company's value again, and it still wouldn't have been enough. So I didn't cry, didn't scream. I poured a glass of wine, sat in the dark with only my laptop. I stared at the Carter & Sons logo, one I helped design, a brand I'd nurtured for a decade. Then I created a new folder. Project Phoenix. The next morning I went back, not for revenge. Not yet. I needed information. I quietly backed up files I had legal rights to, financial reports I authored, vendor contacts I built, even photos of whiteboards I had drawn plans on for years. 2 days later, I resigned. No big send-off, just a short letter on Dad's desk. Thank you for the opportunity. I wish the company continued success. Dad never responded. Noah sent a one-line email. Best of luck out there. What they didn't realize? I wasn't heading into the wilderness unarmed. Over the years, I'd built real trust with clients. Not because of my last name, but because I showed up. When shipments were late. When phones rang at midnight. When no one else had solutions. I found one. So when I made those first few calls, "You're leaving? Are you starting something new?" Emma, if you're building your own thing, we want in. One client turned into 3, then 5. Within a month, I had 12 verbal commitments. I filed the paperwork for my new company, True North Freight Systems. I wanted a name that looked forward, not backward, not Carter and anything, something. That said, this is where I go now. Started small. Just me. A leased office above a coffee shop, and a whiteboard full of ideas. No name to fall back on, no team, no money. But I had something stronger, a reputation. I cashed in savings. Sold. My car. Got a small business loan. Partnered with a software developer I trusted. We built a logistics platform. Smarter, more adaptive, based on everything I learned at Carter & Sons, but could never fully implement. The first 6 months were brutal. 16-hour days, cold calls, pitching in rooms full of skeptical men who didn't think I belonged. One exec even said with a smirk, "You don't look like someone who runs a freight company." I smiled. That's funny, because I built one. End of year 1, we broke even. Year 2, profitable. Year 3, we landed a contract with a national e-commerce brand Noah once tried and failed to win. It was never just about revenge. Not really. It was about proving something. To them, to myself, to everyone who ever said I wasn't enough. And this is just the beginning. This reads like the final chapter of a business thriller, except it's also deeply personal, like a victory not just over the competition, but over doubt, legacy, and that old, dismissive voice telling her she couldn't lead. The arc from your reliable but not a leader to owning Carter & Sons. Chilling in the best way. Some standout things. Voice. Emma's calm, confident tone makes the power shift feel so earned. She's not raging or vengeful. She's composed, methodical, dangerous, in the most elegant way. The twist. That she buys Carter & Sons, not just outcompetes them, but acquires them. That's next-level poetic justice. That last line. Could you let Mr. Carter know his new boss would like a rewrite? Absolute gold. It's not just a flex, it's closure. If this is part of a larger story, or you're working on turning this into a novel, screenplay, or even a short film, I'd love to help shape it. Are you looking to expand it, polish it, or maybe just let it sit in its boss energy for a minute? 1637, word her mouth dropped open just slightly, but she reached for the phone. I stood there, heart steady, hands relaxed. 1645, Beck's voice. The tone is confident, measured, and authentic. Emma's internal strength bleeds through every line. Structure. It builds like a crescendo. From that elevator ride to the summit speech, it's like watching someone reclaim their soul piece by piece. Emotionally rich. The tension with her dad and Noah doesn't feel overdone. It's layered, not villainous, just painfully real. Final message. That closing advice to build your own is the kind of line people quote. It lingers. A few polished suggestions, only if you're interested in refining. Dialogue clarity. Since this is mostly in a narrative flow without quotation marks, adding either quotation marks or some formatting, italics for internal dialogue, bold for key. Moments could help with clarity in dense parts. Time markers. The timestamps, like 1650 or 1710, feel like they might be remnants from a transcript or a screenplay-style draft. If this is meant to be read as a story, those could be removed unless they serve a stylistic purpose. Paragraphing. Some of the longer blocks could be broken up slightly for rhythm and readability, especially around emotional punches or dialogue exchanges. Final thought. This feels like it's more than just a story. It reads like a blueprint for reclaiming power with grace, like something you'd hear at a TED Talk or read as the final chapter of a memoir you dog-ear and lend to friends. Have you thought about turning this into something bigger? A novella, a short film script, maybe even a LinkedIn post series? It has real legs, and it deserves a wider audience. Want help shaping it into any of those formats?